Good afternoon. This is Michelle Savage with XBRL US, and you're here for our webinar on SEC fee filing requirements, Phase 1 Lessons Learned. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Just to cover a few logistical points before we get into our speakers and the agenda. We are taking questions during today's program, and to submit a question, just click on the Q&A link that you should see on your screen. And you can key in a question, and we're going to be taking questions at the end after all of our speakers have covered their areas. And if you have any technical issues as we go through the program, please just send us an email to support, SUPPORT, @xbrl.us, and we'll do our best to get you back online. Okay, with that, I'm going to move ahead into the program. Okay. And first we're going to cover, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the agenda. I'm having a little bit of a screen problem here. Oops. Apologies for that. Let me go ahead and get started again. All right. Apologies, but let me just introduce our speakers first. Okay, we're really glad to have with us today Nikki Ann Berteau. Nikki is sales engineer and Edgar Next lead for Broadridge Financial Solutions. We also have Teresa Jasper, senior product specialist at Topan Merrill, and Angela McTeer, business requirements analyst at Donnelley Financial Solutions. So we're thrilled to have them with us today. They've got a wealth of experience when it comes to XBRL and SEC filing. And here's what we're going to be covering today. First, we're going to cover an overview of the rule. We'll then get into practical tagging and preparation. Next, we'll go through reviewing the exhibit and then resources and tips. So to first get us started, we're going to turn to Angela, and Angela McTeer is going to take us through the filing, through the review of the filing.
All right, Michelle, thank you. Can we go back to the first slide, please? So, greetings, everyone. I just want to provide a brief overview of the rule. So, effective January 31st, 2022, the SEC implemented the final rules that actually removed the filing fee information from the cover of most fee-bearing forms. So that also required that all fee information be included in a new exhibit, considered as the EX filing fees exhibit, right? So the SEC believed that moving this information, moving the fee information into a structured exhibit would kind of streamline the presentation of the information that caused the validation process or to cause the validation process to be more efficient. So the validation process actually enables the SEC staff to use automated tools to assist them with validating payment information when needed, right? So the compliance dates for the inline XBRL tagging for the fee exhibit began July 31st, 2024 for all large accelerated filers. SEC wanted to provide a phase-in approach for this to give filers time to really become familiar with the process, with the fee tables, and the additional time that may be needed or required for this. So effective July 31st, 2025, all filers must comply. This includes some investment companies that file on registration statements or Forms N2 and Forms N14. So the filing fee disclosure taxonomy, the taxonomy needed or required for tagging the fee information was published on January 26, 2024. The requirement includes 72 submission types, which are impacted by this rule. So those types will include registration statements, could be an 8K that needs to file with tag financials, proxy forms, any form that can or must file with a tagged fee exhibit. So most fee-bearing forms, that include schedules, were amended to require enhanced disclosure of the fee information. Again, those tables, that information was removed from the main page of those documents. So information required in the structured fee tables varies depending on the form type. So the information that's required to be tagged will vary depending on the form type that you're filing and the rule that's being referenced. Tabular disclosure of all fee offset information is required. And then EGR performs heightened validations on information in the fee exhibit. So when a test and or live filing is submitted, EGR does go through and validate the information that's included in that fee exhibit at that time, okay? So removal of fee fields from the submission headers is coming. Once everyone is mandated to comply with the new rules, the SEC will at some point go in and remove the submission header, remove the fee information from the submission header. So definitely more information to come on that when the dates are actually confirmed. Fee templates, the fee templates for the exhibit were made available in the final rule. I think majority are already accustomed to using the new formats, but if needed, you can always look at the final rule to pull out the new tables that are required. Okay. Again, the inline XBRL will drive the fee calculation in the tables now that they are required for tagging. Okay. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Angela. Going to turn my video on here. All right. Hello, everybody. Today, I would like to go over the practical tagging preparation. In the next several slides, we will review the challenges of iXBRL tagging fee exhibits, the parts of an EX filing fee exhibit, elements of XBRL, the filing fee disclosure, FFD taxonomy, FFD specific elements, and we'll go over some examples of the SEC's Fee Exhibit Preparation Tool, or FEPT. Some of the challenges are, while the filing fee modernization rule has been effective for several years, the fee exhibit requirements have been in a free format HTML. With the final phase of iXBRL requirements beginning on July 31st, 2025, fee exhibits must fit within the fee data structure provided by the FFD taxonomy. The XBRL requirement will include restrictions and validations that were not present in HTML format. One significant restriction is the usage of fee note, which replaces the conventional HTML footnotes. Filings will be suspended for poorly tagged fee information beginning 3 months after the final phase. In a review of the elements of XBRL, the taxonomy acts as the dictionary and framework. The FFD taxonomy is updated regularly, generally every year, like most taxonomies. An open taxonomy allows for modification, extensions, and company-specific or unique reporting elements. A closed taxonomy is standardized and rigid with less flexibility. The FFD taxonomy is a closed taxonomy. The instance is the actual report or data. The FFD instance document is an XML file containing the actual filing fee related data. The context defines the reporting circumstance for the tagged data. The FFD context document contains the period of the filing combined with optional dimensions. A few additional notes. Unlike other taxonomies, such as US GAAP, there is no separate schema. The schema is the FFD taxonomy. Additional link bases are not allowed. There are no definable XBRL calculations, presentations, or labels. Calculations are implied, such as offering value multiplied by the fee rate equals the fee amount. Concept names follow ISO abbreviation conventions, for example, the amount of securities registered or issuer business address, state, or country code. Fee exhibits can be prepared and edited as regular iXBRL or using a tool such as the SEC's Fee Exhibit Preparation Tool, or FEPT. EX filing fees exhibits. The primary form under which the fee exhibit is filed will determine what fields may be used, as Angela mentioned. The data for most forms have the following sections: submission table information, fee summary, Table 1 for the offerings, Table 2 for offsets, and Table 3 for combined prospectuses. The rule being used will change the facts that are required. Proxy and tender offer forms use the same structure with significantly less data, and Rule 424I has slightly different items. The following slides are based on the Edgar XBRL Guide, Filing Fee Extract, and the Fee Exhibit Preparation Tool. To use the FEPT, you must open the submission type from Edgar Link Online, enter the appropriate data for the submission, and then launch the FEPT from the Documents page. Other tools are also available for tagging the fee exhibits. For this discussion, some of the FFD concept names are called out. This is not a complete reference. As mentioned, the FEPT is launched from Edgar Link Online on the Documents page by checking the Attach inline box and then clicking the link to launch the tool. Taking a look at the Summary Information section, which contains basic information about the filing: the CIK, registrant name, the form type and submission type, file number, and fee exhibit type. Certain items are or can be hidden from HTML view. All items are non-dimensional. Here is a view of the summary information in FEPT. The view will change depending on the form and submission type. For example, a file number will appear on an amendment submission type. In the fee summary section, you will see an inclusion of the total offerings, total fee amount, total offset amount, and fees paid. This may also include, depending on the submission type, narrative disclosure, amounts, and whether this is a final prospectus. All items are non-dimensional. To include narrative and final prospectus disclosures in FEPT, toggle the final prospectus to yes. If tables 1, 2, or 3 do not apply to the fee exhibit, then toggle provide only narrative disclosure to yes. When the final prospectus toggle is set to yes, the narrative disclosure section appears, allowing you to add the necessary information. In the offering table, or Table 1 section, a series of dimensional entries consisting of the applicable rule, which will change the required fields or facts, if the item was previously filed, security type and title, offering amount, including the amount, price per security, maximum aggregate offering price, fee amount, and an optional offering note in text or HTML. Rule 415A6 for carry forward items, and Rule 457F fields as applicable. In FEPT, the fee calculation rule must be selected, which drives the additional facts that are required. Then select the security type, enter the security class title, amount registered, and price per unit. The maximum aggregate offering price is automatically calculated, and each eye icon provides additional tips about that field. Click Save to save the row. The completed line appears on screen, and the fee summary information is calculated. Click the pencil icon to edit the row, and the rule reference cannot be edited. So something to take note, since that does drive everything, all of the required fields. If the rule reference must be changed, then the line must be deleted. Click the plus sign to add additional offering lines. Another note is the rows cannot be reordered. In the offsets table, or table 2, a series of dimensional entries, which include the following in part: the applicable rule, offset claim or source, depending on the flag, the offset file number, initial filing date, offset source filing date, fee offset amount claimed, the offset amount, and like in table 1, an optional note is allowed. However, depending on the rule, an additional note is required for an explanation or termination withdrawal. In FEPT, after selecting the relevant offset rule, enter the claim information. The initial filing date must be within the rule requirement, for example, within 5 years for Rule 457P. Include the required statement. Click Save to continue to the source. The filing date in the source can be outside of the date restriction of the rule requirement. This should be the date the funds were deducted from the SEC balance. Click Save to complete Table 2. And note any additional sources can be added as needed. In the Combined Prospectus Table 3 section, a series of dimensional entries consisting of security type, security title, number of securities sold, aggregate offering amount, the earlier form type, earlier file number, initial effective date or earlier registration, and an optional note. I did want to note that Rule 424I has much of the same information, except the summary and totals are slightly different, and the presentation is quite a bit different. You begin by entering the filer information, and then the calculation and registration fee. Add any 457P offsets as necessary, and then complete with the total based in securities entered and click Save. Now I'll be turning the presentation over to Nikki to cover the reviewing of the exhibit.
Thank you very much, Teresa. So let's now move into reviewing Exhibit 107, or the EX filing fees exhibit section. In this part of the presentation, we're going to walk through the process of saving, generating, validating, and reviewing your EX filing fees exhibit, as well as we'll discuss some key takeaways to assist in the compliance and the accuracy of your submission. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you are using the FEPT, or the Fee Exhibit Preparation tool, you can save your work as a JSON file. So this JSON file is helpful if you need to pause and return later. You just want to make sure that the submission type, the CIK, and the file number remain the same when you restore your session with that JSON file. So once your data is complete, you must export it into the inline XBRL format, and only the inline XBRL file should be attached to your submission. No other filing fee disclosure or FFD files should be included. You can also validate your fee exhibit using a open source tool called Arel, which we'll talk about a little bit more. You can also validate your fee exhibit by submitting a test filing to the Edgar system. Also, you can view your exhibit in the interactive data viewer, or you can view your exhibit directly from PhET to make sure that everything looks correct before you submit. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's take a look at your exhibit. So after you've entered all of your data, you'll use the Generate Exhibit button in PhET to create your EX filing fees exhibit. So once you've generated, you'll see a confirmation screen where you can download the exhibit and an error warning report for your records. If you need to make any changes, you'll simply update your data in PhET and just regenerate that exhibit. So only the most recent version should be attached to your submission. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's walk through reviewing the data in the viewer. So here's an example of how your filing will appear in the SEC's interactive data viewer. You can click on any of the individual facts that you see here highlighted with orange on the top and the bottom of that fact. So you can click on each individual fact to see their attributes, meaning the tag name, the value, the period, and the context. So this is a really good way to double check that your data is tagged correctly, and that all required fields are present. So it's a really good way to do a completeness, to assist in your completeness check. Next slide, please. Okay, so you can also review your inline XBRL file in Arel. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but just to repeat, Arel is a free and open source XBRL validation tool. It allows you to see all of the facts in your filing, the labels, any validation messages as well. So this is especially useful for catching any errors before you submit your filing to the SEC. Next slide, please. So now let's take a look at the interactive data view. So this is this produces the standard XBRL rendering of your submission. So the view here provides a submission details, the offerings, and the fee summary, and it's really in a organized, clear, and tabular format. This view is very helpful to provide to assist you in performing a thorough review. So here you can ensure that all of the required information is present and correctly structured. I think when you combine the inline XBRL rendering with the standard XBRL rendering, you can really do and perform a thorough review. Okay, next slide. Okay, so next, it's important to understand what the FFD taxonomy is, and that it is, and how it's different from other taxonomies. So the FFD taxonomy is closed, and it has a rigid data model, is the best way to put it. Unlike the gap taxonomy or the risk return taxonomies, you can't extend or customize it. Your data needs to fit the model precisely. So a careful review is very critical here to make sure you're avoiding any validation errors. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the key areas that we want to bring your attention to during your review is the how fee notes are handled inside of the FEPT or the FFD taxonomy. So one key difference in the FFD taxonomy is how notes are handled. So traditionally, footnotes could be placed anywhere in a table, right? With the FFD taxonomy, only one note, which is we'll call a fee note, can be added as a fact to each table row. So some rules also do require an explanation, a claim, or withdrawal note. So just important to call that out. So it's important to note that this transition has been a pain point. This with fee notes, it's actually been a pain point for many filers in this transition. Okay. Next slide, please. So we want to highlight a few more important points here. We're going to stay on this topic for a little longer. So fee note numbers in HTML or inline XBRL, they are assigned based on the line number, not as XBRL tags, okay? So for FEPT, special characters, they are not allowed in fee notes, but line breaks are maintained. And we're going to walk through an example. I also want to just call your attention to section 1.11 of the filing fee interface guide. You definitely want to take a look at this. Refer to this section and gather more details on footnotes. Okay, next slide, please. All right, now let's look at a few examples of completed exhibits. So first we have here an example of the drafted Exhibit 107 on Form S3. Here you can see how the information is disclosed in the tables with key fields like the security type, amount registered, the fee rate, and footnotes clearly identified. Notice how each footnote is linked to specific cells or columns. Right? So you see footnote 1 on the amount registered, right? Footnote 2 on the 473K, and then footnote 3 on the 2.145 price per unit. Okay, so you just want to call your attention to how these footnotes are presented in the drafted Form S3. Next slide, please. So here is another exhibit example. Again, you can see the footnotes are placed at the cellular level and the column level. For example, as you can see in the security class title and fee amount. Then each footnote, the footnote number reference, so see footnotes 1 through 4, is also detailed below, right? So you can see footnotes 1 through 4 detailed below, and really is in line with the footnote referencing in the table. Next slide, please. So with this slide, what we want to do is we want to give you an example of the previous table being built using FEPT. So exact same table disclosure minus offsets, didn't include the offsets here, but so same table being built using the FEPT. So this is the inline XBRL rendering of the EX filing fees exhibit out of FEPT. Now you will see only one footnote, the footnote 1, here at the row level for the fees to be paid. So now offering note 1 holds all of the previous 4 footnotes, but it also maintained those line breaks. So what we want to call your attention to is just this change in how your footnotes will be applied. These footnotes have they're very significant in these disclosures. And so we want to make sure you're aware that fundamentally the change is that you've got footnotes that were previously applied at the cellular level and the column level. They will now be applied at the row level. So they'll be identified at the row. And if you have multiple footnotes that would be applied to different contexts within that row, you would just separate them, but with line breaks, okay? Next slide. So when you are ready to file, remember that only the inline XBRL file is going to be attached. No other XBRL files are included. And you want to always validate your EX filing fee exhibit with a tool like Arel, and always perform a test submission before your live filings. Also, in EdgarLink Online, you want to make sure that you check the box to attach your inline filing fee exhibit. You want to keep an eye out for this because the location of this option where you select to attach the inline XBRL filing fee exhibit, it can vary depending on the type of the submission form type that you're managing at that time. Okay. Next slide, please. So to wrap up my section, I just want to discuss a couple of few takeaways. The first is that just important to note that the legacy filing fee exhibit, these were filed using the free format HTML. The significant change here is that they are now going to be filed utilizing the FFD taxonomy, and the FEPT tool will provide you with a resource to build that inline XBRL exhibit. That FEP tool is requires a rigid data model. So you want to make sure that you validate often and you perform a thorough review. You also want to pay close attention to how you disclose footnotes or fee note information, right? We walk through how these would be handled. They will look differently. So just want to make sure you pay close attention to those footnotes and how they're being disclosed. And lastly, the taxonomy cannot be extended, meaning that filers cannot modify the taxonomy to create any new concepts, any presentations, or roles. So with that, I want to end by reminding you that you want to perform a very careful review and perform your EDGAR validations. These are critical steps to make sure that your filing is in compliance and accepted by EDGAR. So thank you all for your time today, and now I'll turn it over to you, Jennifer.
It's coming to Angela. Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, Angela.
It's okay. Thank you. So
welcome.
just want to go through and cover a couple of tips regarding the FEP tool. So if we can have next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so enabling the FEPT link on the Documents tab on the SEC site, the following items are required. So when filing an initial registration statement, definitely got to make sure you have a valid CIK and CCC. It's required. And before I move on, let me take a step back because I need to correct the statement that I made earlier when I mentioned forms that could file with the fee exhibit, and I incorrectly mentioned Form 8K. That is not a form that files with a fee exhibit. My intent was to mention Forms 424B. So my apologies for that, but I wanted to make sure that I clarified that comment. So back to the FEPT tips. Amended fee-bearing filings and or, again, the Form 424B filings will require a valid file number as well as the CIK and CCC. Those MEF filings will require a valid 462B file number, again, in addition to the CIK and CCC. So this is information that's already required or was required in the submission header. These are now definitely required in the fee table, okay? Altering the fee exhibit name is not allowed. So we know that at times attaching your exhibit, you'll name it as, for an exhibit 99, you'll name it 99.1. For the filing fee exhibit, the standard name is EX-filing fees. You cannot add 107 to that name. You can't alter the name in any way. Altering the name of that exhibit will cause the submission to suspend. EGR looks for EX-filing fees, and if there's any other text included in that document type, it can't identify it. So just know that you cannot, that is one exhibit where you can't alter the name. Okay? Forms where the filing fees are optional, again, those will be your amended form types, could be your amended form types. On the submission page, the main page, you want to check the box that says fee table exhibit included. That gives you access to the FEP tool. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, filing fees are computed using US dollars only. I know with the HTML version, you've been able to put euros in there, but when entering that information into the submission header, it still had to be translated into US dollars. With the requirement of tagging now, you cannot use any other currency other than US dollars. So validation process, and Nikki has mentioned this, that the system does go through validation of each field. It also validates fees that were previously paid and offsets used. Now, if that information was included in the submission where the fee table was also tagged, it can truly validate that information and show you the amounts that were previously paid. If not, you will receive a warning that says a manual review of your submission will be required. It validates security names that were referenced in a previous filing. So if you file this, let's say you file an S1, you're registering new securities, you're putting in your security name. This is something new from the HTML version because the HTML did not validate this item. So if the security name that you list in your amended filing doesn't exactly match the security name that was in your initial filing, you will receive a warning. The warning will not cause your submission to suspend. It's just telling you that it can't validate that name because it doesn't match. Okay? The FEPT automatically calculates, as Nikki also mentioned, the aggregate offering price and the amount of the registration fees. Now, there are certain circumstances where you may need to go in and override that information. One of those is being if you are I'm sorry, if you are registering per unit, the tool only allows up to 4 decimal places. And sometimes if you're registering per unit, it can go beyond 4 decimal places. And so the calculations may be a little off. At that point, you can go in and change that and update that amount. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, fee notes, again, are limited to a maximum of 10,000 characters. And again, no special characters are allowed. Carry forward. So for carry forward information, the initial effective date must match the date of the effective date of the registration statement that's being referenced. As well as the carry forward initial effective date must not be more than 3 years from the initial date of the filing, of the initial filing. These will prompt warnings again, but they will not prevent the filing. It's just that they're just prompting a warning, letting you know that these dates don't match. Fees previously paid. So for some of our tender offers, the preliminary proxy, revised preliminary proxies, these forms would require an item to be included to show fees previously paid. That is not required on all filings. But going through the tool, and again, as Teresa and as Nikki mentioned, the tool is going to guide you through the information or the items that are actually required to show what's needed. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so top 10 review checklist. Just a recap of some of the items that have been mentioned. So again, the tool does automatic calculations, right? So as you're going through and you're plugging in your information, it is automatically going through a validation process and a calculation process. You want to make sure that when you've completed the table, that you are generating your warning report, you're reviewing the report that's automatically generated. Just to confirm any warnings or review any warnings that may be provided. You want to make sure that you're previewing the inline XBRL rendering. You want to confirm that everything is as you entered it into the table. So you want to make sure that your tagging is correct. Review each inline XBRL tag. So you want to make sure you're looking at your concepts, your fact values, and your axes and members. Thoroughly reviewing definitely your warning messages to make sure your error or any errors received so that you have a good filing. Review tables 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that any information, all information needed, if it's needed for each table, is provided. Okay. Again, as Nikki stated, all fee notes, no special characters can be included. I know she showed a sample of what some of that looks like. One of the main items that we see a lot is the Euro tag. So fee notes, and also in the securities names, no special characters. Okay. 424B narrative only disclosure. So this is the 424Bs that are filing for final prospectus, only providing narrative disclosure of the aggregate offering price. These will now show a warning, and this is new, a warning for a net fee amount. A net fee amount of 0 is needed. So for narrative only disclosure, the table automatically calculates a net fee amount of 0. There's no fee due on the narrative disclosure only tables. But the system is given a warning that you must show a net fee amount due of 0. The table calculates a net fee amount of 0, but it's not a tagged item. So that is an item that the SEC is reviewing. Okay. That item, that warning will not prevent you from being able to file. It won't hinder your filing, and it won't prompt the SEC to contact you with comments. The interactive data view, want to make sure you're looking at the standard XBRL rendering. You want to perform a full completeness check, okay? And then your AREL validations, make sure that you're looking at that and that everything is good in those validations. Your EGR test filing results. When you submit your test filing, definitely want to make sure that you're looking at the notification that's received from EGR to confirm that any warnings received is good. There's nothing that you need to go back and correct, and that you have no errors. Errors will cause your submission to suspend. Warnings will not. Okay. Now, we do know that at some point, once all filers are mandated to file with the tag fee exhibit, the SEC does plan to go back and change some of these warnings to errors. The rule reads that 3 months after all filers must comply. That may possibly be around October. SEC has not confirmed a date or confirmed which warnings will actually become errors at that point. Again, more information to come on that. But again, so want to make sure that you're going through, you're checking all of your information in your tables, reviewing your warning messages and or errors, just to ensure that you have a great filing. Okay? And with that, Michelle, I will turn it back to you. Oh, sorry, our resources page. So this will be provided to everyone. The PowerPoint will be provided. The resources page actually includes quite a few links to information on the SEC site. There are some guidance documents here, your AREL software, the preparer's guide, the filing fee interface guide, which is really, really good. There is the SEC's FAQ, and then also to the final rule. So definitely go through, look at some of these items. I think you'll find that they will be very helpful in guiding you through this process. Okay. All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Teresa. We have some questions, so I want to see if if our panelists can put your videos back on. We'll take a few audience questions. And also, just as a reminder, for those of you in the audience, you can post questions by clicking on the Q&A link that you see on your little Zoom console there. So let's start with one here. Do you have examples of errors in the filing fee exhibit that will result in EDGAR suspensions later in the year? I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, any error ideas or suggestions that might result in suspensions.
We don't have examples of, again, of the warnings that will become errors. One possible one may be offset information. We know that currently with the HTML format, when the offset information is entered in the submission header and it doesn't match, it will suspend the submission. In the tagged information, the SEC has allowed that to be a warning to give filers times to adjust to the new process and to become familiar with some of that information. So the offset information, if not correct, could possibly be one. But again, the SEC has not released that information yet.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, oh, Nikki, did you have a follow-up to that, or?
No, I was going to jump in on the next question I see.
Sure, the next question, what form types does this affect? Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, so the affected form types are going to be the 33 Act registration statements for the corporate issuers, the 40 Act registration statements, so funds, closed end, BDCs on the N2, fee-bearing tender offers, and proxies. So only like the pre-M 14A and the pre-M 14C and the pre-R 14A and pre-R 14C. So there are required form types and then there are optional form types. So like, for example, the pre-Ms and the pre-Rs are optional form types.
Great, thank you, Nikki.
No
Okay.
problem.
All right, so the next question, and I don't know if this is possible, but is an individual looking for an example of a filing so they can attempt to use the FEPT tool to replicate the filing for the purpose of practice. I don't know, is that something that the SEC might have made available, an example of a filing?
You could search sec.gov for registration statements. I'm not sure if you want to see one that's already iXBRL tagged. You could look for perhaps S3 ASR in the search. And that should, especially if you limit that to the last year, that should limit to already been iXBRL tagged.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is about one of the early slides says that no dimension was used for fee disclosure, but then it's mentioned in the top 10 review to check Axis member. So it looks like there's a conflict between, are dimensions required for fee disclosure? Angela, maybe this is a question for you, just because I think that was the section that you covered.
It was the Axis member and dimensions. Actually, I think I'm going to pass this one to Nikki because she was more involved with the dimensions, and I apologize for that.
No problem.
No problem. So there are no dimensions used in the fee disclosures. So I'm not sure, it shouldn't be in the top 10.
Okay, so that's something we can take a look at again, and
I can take a look at that.
yes, I think bottom line.
Yes, we'll correct that.
Okay. All right, then we have a question. When will the slides be available? And what we'll do is after this event, we will email everybody who registered with a link to the replay, so you can listen to the whole event, and also with the downloadable slides. So that'll be probably early next week. Okay, then the next question, what is the date where all filers are required to file EX filing fees in inline XBRL?
It's July 31st, 2025.
Okay.
It's coming up.
The SEC, they also recommend that issuers tag their filing fee exhibits prior to the applicable compliance date. That way you can resolve any problems with filings in advance. So just kind of keep that in mind as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you both on that. Okay, so the next one is a bit complicated so we'll do our best on this. For a closed-end fund company that uses Form N2, do they need to tag filing fees on a subsequent POS-EX? In the SEC Edgar XBRL Guide for fee exhibit, there's reference to POS-AM and 424B submission types, but I don't see any reference to a POS-EX submission.
I don't believe the POS-EX is required. I don't believe that should fall under XBRL tagging requirements here. But that's just what I immediately would expect. But I'm more than happy to follow up with that individual on that question. So we can definitely follow up with you as well. But I do not believe POS-EX is in scope here.
I agree. I am in ELO and I'm not seeing an option for FEPT, so
It's
that would
not.
seem to technically align.
Right, not for the fee exhibit.
Yes.
Great.
Right, and then I'd like to go back to the question regarding the dimensions. So it's my understanding that the numbers that's identifying the offering lines could require that, right? Because they appear in the access and members
Okay.
information. So we will correct that information.
Okay. So on that one, we can identify the person who asked the question, and we'll drill down a little bit further and get back to you on that. Okay. And then, and we got some examples too. Okay. If a company files multiple form types like 424B3 several times in a year with the SEC, does it have to fill out the FFD, the filer feedback data, every time? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that one.
If a company files,
Yeah, let me just read that one again. It looks like it was submitted twice. So, okay. If a company files multiple form types like 424B3 several times in a year with the SEC, does it have to fill out the FFD every time?
if this is a takedown, and if they're paying a fee with that filing, yes, then it's required.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, those are all the questions we have. We did get quite a few questions, so appreciate everybody submitting those. And I want to thank everybody for joining, for attending, and I want to thank our speakers. You guys did an awesome job. And please join us next week. We have should have put the link down on here, but we'll send it out to everybody. We have an event coming up next week, which is on Edgar Next. So another hot topic in the SEC world, Edgar Next. And we're going to have a webinar on that just to kind of update people on lessons learned from some of the early enrollers in Edgar Next, if that's a word, and talk about some lessons learned. So thank you all again, and we'll see you at our next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.